It was a sunny Saturday morning, and I had decided to take advantage of my day off to organize my office, a space that had, over the past few months, turned into a true battlefield of books, papers, and teaching materials. I had always been a bit disorganized, but with the intense routine of being a history teacher at a local school, the mess seemed to have accumulated in a way I could no longer ignore. As I rummaged through the drawers, trying to find a place for everything, my heart raced with anticipation. How long had it been since I dedicated time to myself? As I opened one of the drawers, a pile of yellowed papers caught my attention. I slowly pulled them out, and to my surprise, I realized they were letters. The paper was thin and delicate, and the handwriting was so beautiful it seemed to dance across the page. My heart raced as I noticed they were all addressed to me. "For Samantha," read the first line of each one. Curious, I began to read the first letter. The content was filled with tenderness and passion. Each word seemed wrapped in an emotion I had never experienced. "Samantha, you light up my days in a way I never thought possible." With each sentence, I felt more and more captivated. Who could have written these letters? The writing was so intimate, almost as if the author knew not just my name, but the nuances of my soul. "But who are you?" I murmured to myself as the words danced in my mind, awakening questions I didn't know how to answer. I allowed myself to dream for a few moments, imagining a mysterious romantic who might have been watching me, perhaps a colleague from school or someone from town who, for some reason, had never revealed themselves. I decided to show the letters to Lisa, my longtime friend, who always had a special talent for unraveling mysteries. As soon as I entered the CAF where we usually met, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. "You won't believe what I found," I exclaimed as she greeted me with a warm hug. I settled into the chair and pulled the letters from my bag. "Look at this," I said, handing the letters to her. Lisa's eyes widened in surprise. "Wow, these are beautiful. Who wrote this? Do you have any idea?" "I have no idea. It's all anonymous," I replied, biting my lower lip, a nervous habit I had. The excitement in her voice was contagious, but there was also a twinge of fear in me. What if it's someone I know? What if I find out who it is and I don't like it? "You need to find out. This is a mystery," Lisa said, her eyes sparkling. "Let's investigate. We can ask some friends, see if anyone has any clues." "Do you really think this could lead us somewhere?" I asked, hesitant. What was hidden behind these letters? I didn't want the search for the truth to become an obsession, but at the same time, something inside me was pulsing, pleading for answers. Of course, it could be fun, and if we don't find anything, at least we'll have a good story to tell. She smiled, and I couldn't help but laugh. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself caught up in the idea. As I watched Lisa examine the letters, I felt a wave of gratitude. Those anonymous love letters were not just words on paper. They awakened something in me, a curiosity that couldn't be ignored. The mystery was calling me, and as much as I hesitated, I realized that the search for the truth would be inevitable. It was as if I were about to embark on a journey that would change the way I viewed the world around me. "So, what do you think we should do first?" I asked, a nervous smile on my face. "Let's start asking around. Who knows, maybe someone has seen something, or maybe someone else has received letters like this," Lisa suggested, and I sat up straighter in my chair, feeling a flutter in my stomach. The mystery was just beginning. The next day began with rays of sunlight filtering through the curtains of my room. But instead of bringing me a sense of renewal, it was the anticipation that kept me awake. Those letters were spinning endlessly in my mind, like a carousel of emotions that I couldn't stop. I decided I needed to do something about it. The curiosity was like a flame that couldn't be extinguished. "Lisa, are you ready to be a detective today?" I asked, barely containing the excitement in my voice when I called her. Of course. I've always wanted to be a detective. I just hope the mystery doesn't involve a murder, she replied, letting out a laugh that made me feel we were on the right track. We met at one of the city's CFS, a place that exuded the aroma of fresh coffee and warm pastries, where we sat at a table in the back, away from distractions. Before we began, I looked around as if the walls could give me some clue about the author of the letters. Let's make a list of people we can ask about this, I suggested, grabbing a napkin to jot down names. Maybe Bill, the mailman, knows something. He knows everyone in town. Great idea. How about Mrs. Agnes? She always has stories about the old residents, Lisa added excitedly. With each new idea, the anxiety inside me transformed into determination. As soon as we finished our coffee, we decided the best place to start would be the old house where I lived. It was a location that always had an air of mystery, and now, with the letters in mind, it seemed like every corner could hide secrets. As we walked toward the house, I couldn't help but notice the gentle breeze blowing, as if the air itself was whispering something to me. Have you ever thought that the letters might have something to do with the house's history? Lisa asked, breaking my reverie. Honestly, I don't know, but something tells me they're more than just words on a page. There's a feeling behind them, a connection I can't explain, I replied, looking at the façade of the house, which seemed so familiar and yet so distant. As soon as we arrived, I opened the door and stepped inside. The smell of old wood and dust was unmistakable. Let's look for a clue, I said as we walked through the rooms. Each step I took seemed to echo, as if the house were watching me. Look at this, Lisa exclaimed, pointing to a wall where a framed portrait of a couple was hanging. They look happy. Do you think they could be the former owners? Maybe, but who knows what happened to them? I murmured, gazing at the painting. The expressions on their faces were so sweet, so full of life. A wave of melancholy washed over me. After examining every corner of the house, we decided it was time to ask a few people. We went to Mrs. Agnes's house, which was just a few blocks away. She had always been a source of stories, and I hoped she could help us. When we arrived, she was sitting on her porch, tending to her plants. "Ah, my dears, what brings you here?" she said, beaming from ear to ear. "Mrs. Agnes, we're trying to find out more about the house where I live. Do you know anything about the former residents?" I asked, trying to hide the anxiety in my voice. She furrowed her brow, as if digging into her memories. "Ah, yes. A very lovely couple. They were in love, but suddenly they disappeared. No one ever knew what happened. Just rumors." "Rumors? What kind of rumors?" Lisa asked, leaning forward, clearly interested. "They say there was a fight, that someone saw them leaving at night. But there was never any proof. Just mystery." Mrs. Agnes's voice grew grave, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "What about them having children?" I inquired, sensing that this information could be crucial. She looked at me with a sad expression. "Not that I know of, but what you must understand is that this house carries many stories. Some are happy, others, not so much." We returned home with a weight in our hearts and our minds full of questions. I didn't know that the simple act of investigating would leave me so restless. As I opened the drawer again, a new feeling of apprehension washed over me. What else would I discover? Would I really be ready to face the secrets this house held? And more importantly, who was the author of the letters? The local library had an air of mystery that always fascinated me, but on that particular day, the weight of what I was about to discover left me restless. The shelves, filled with dusty books, seemed to guard secrets that I was about to uncover. With a knot in my stomach, I approached the information desk. The librarian, an elderly woman with gray hair and thick glasses, watched me with curiosity. "Can I help you, dear?" she asked while she rearranged some books. "I'm looking for old articles about disappearances in our town. Something that happened many years ago, I replied, trying to contain the anxiety in my voice. Oh, the case of the couple who disappeared about 20 years ago. It's a recurring topic around here. Many still remember them. The librarian smiled sadly. I think I have something about that in the archives. One moment. As she walked away, I couldn't help but think about the letters. Each one seemed to be connected to this mystery, and the more I learned about the couple, the faster my heart raced. The librarian returned carrying an old newspaper, its yellowed pages revealing the passage of time. Here it is. This article was written shortly after they disappeared. You'll be surprised by the details, she said, handing me the newspaper. With trembling hands, I opened the page and began to read. The article talked about the disappearance of a couple who lived in the house where I now resided. What truly intrigued me, however, was the mention of a son who had also disappeared. My heart raced as I realized that the story was intertwining with my own life. Did you know they had a son? I asked the librarian, my voice choked. Yes, it was a tragedy. The boy was only 10 years old at the time. He was very much loved by the community, she replied, with a nostalgic look. Many believe that if they hadn't disappeared, he would have grown up to be a great man. And what happened to him? I inquired, anxious. No one knows. The police searched, but they never found any sign of him. The case became a mystery. She paused, looking at me intensely. Some people say he is still around here, in some way. I felt a chill run down my spine as her words echoed in my mind. I glanced back at the article, trying to find any clues that would help me make the connection between the past and the letters. It was as if the author of the letters was guiding me through this labyrinth of mysteries. You resemble the young woman he used to date. The story says he had a platonic love for a girl who lived in the neighborhood. The librarian continued, bringing me back to reality. What do you mean? What happened to her? I asked, anxious. Unfortunately, no one knows. She disappeared from sight after the incident. But people often say he loved her very much, she replied, her eyes shining with the emotion of the memory. My heart raced. What did this mean? The letters I received were connecting in a deeper way than I could have imagined. It was as if the story was repeating itself, and I was at the center of it. With my mind buzzing with questions, I thanked the librarian and left the library, the weight of what I had discovered following me. On the walk back home, my mind wouldn't stop. The descriptions in the letters seemed to reflect moments from my life that I had never shared with anyone, and now everything made sense. I needed answers. As soon as I entered the house, I rushed to the drawer where the letters were kept. Carefully, I opened the drawer and took out the last letter, which was still waiting for me. Who are you? I asked aloud, as if the author could hear me. Why do your words resonate so deeply within me? The letter was silent, but I knew there was more to be revealed. Each line written was a clue in a puzzle that I was determined to solve. My heart thumped with anticipation, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that, somehow, the past was about to intertwine with my present in a way I could never have imagined. With each new letter I read, I felt a flutter in my stomach. It was as if those words, written with so much affection, were pulling me deeper into a mystery I wasn't sure I was ready to uncover. The connection between the letters and my own life became more unsettling with each revelation. That night, after a long and exhausting research journey, I decided I needed to dig deeper. I needed to understand what had truly happened to the missing couple and their child. The next day, I got in my car and drove to the former home of the missing family. It was a place that had always intrigued me, but at the same time, it filled me with a certain dread. The worn walls seemed to whisper secrets, and the air was thick with an untold story. Once I arrived, I parked in front of an entrance covered with ivy. The gate creaked as I pushed it open, as if protesting my presence. The front door was slightly ajar, and I hesitated for a moment. What I was about to do was more than just explore. It was a quest for answers. With a deep breath, I pushed the door and stepped inside. The smell of mold and old wood filled my nostrils, and the dim lighting made everything even darker. Each step I took echoed through the silent house, and the feeling of being watched accompanied me. I began to rummage through the rooms, finding objects that seemed to have been hastily left behind. A painting hanging on the wall caught my attention. It was a portrait of a young woman, with eyes that seemed to follow me. My heart raced in my chest. The woman in the painting was strangely familiar. "Who are you?" I murmured to myself as I approached to examine it more closely. In the master bedroom, I found a dusty box on a shelf. Inside, there were black and white photographs of a smiling family. The woman from the painting was there, alongside a man and a boy who seemed to share the same dreamy expression. The connection was undeniable. The boy had a smile that reminded me of something I couldn't quite identify. This is crazy, I thought, but a part of me knew that the letters were just the beginning of something much bigger. As I examined the photos, I found a yellowed, crumpled letter that seemed forgotten. My heart raced when I realized it was addressed to my dear son. Reading the words written in delicate handwriting made my stomach churn. The letter spoke of love, hope, and a promising future that never came. I felt myself being drawn into that story, as if the words wanted to wrap me in a tight embrace. "Sam, are you okay?" Lisa's voice echoed in my mind, interrupting me. I couldn't believe her memory had surfaced at that moment, but I immediately realized I needed her by my side. The weight of those discoveries was too much to bear alone. I decided to head home, but as I walked away, a restlessness grew inside me. The reality that there was a connection between me, the missing people, and those letters became clearer and clearer. What was in my past that I still didn't know? When I got home, anxiety consumed me. I sat at the table and began to read the new letter I had found earlier. The words danced before my eyes, but a soft whisper interrupted me. "Samantha," it was a call, almost inaudible, but clear enough to make my heart stop. I looked around, hoping it was just my imagination, but it wasn't. The feeling of being watched intensified, and the tension in the air became almost palpable. "Who is there?" I asked, my voice trembling. The silence that followed was deafening. The whisper repeated, louder, closer. "Samantha," my name echoed, as if coming from a distant but familiar place. Curiosity and fear intertwined in my chest, and I knew the answers I sought were closer than I thought. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful or revealing it might be. The atmosphere in the room was charged. The air seemed to vibrate with an energy I couldn't fully grasp. I had decided to seek answers, and now I was about to confront what could be the most painful truth of my life. The essence was scheduled for that night, and I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Each beat of my heart echoed in my mind, like a constant reminder of what was to come. I arrived at the location, an old wooden house that exuded an air of mystery and history. The soft light of the candles cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an environment conducive to what I was about to experience. The medium, a man with a serene appearance, greeted me with an understanding look. His voice was soft and reassuring, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to plunge into something deep and unknown. "Are you ready, Samantha?" he asked as he led me into a room filled with objects that seemed to have been carefully chosen. "Remember that we are here to bring peace, both for you and for the spirit that wishes to communicate." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. I just want to understand," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. "I want to know who he is." The medium nodded and began to chant words in a language I didn't recognize. The candles flickered, and I felt a cold breeze pass through the room. The sensation that something was about to happen intensified, and soon he began to speak, his voice changing as if he were channeling another entity. Samantha. The voice was soft, but there was a weight of pain. I am here. It's me. A chill ran down my spine. Who are you? I asked, trying to maintain my composure. Why are you calling me? I am the son of the couple who disappeared. I was trapped between worlds, trying to find a way to communicate with you, he said, and his voice was like a familiar echo. The letters were the only way I found to connect. My heart raced. Why did you choose me? What do you want from me? I didn't want to cause pain, but I needed help. My story needs to be told. I cannot rest until you know the truth. His voice seemed to blend with a lament, and I felt a wave of empathy for him. What truth? I insisted, the anguish growing in my chest. What happened to you and your parents? I lost them. They tried to protect me, but something went wrong. I didn't know how to deal with it, and I ended up trapped here. You are important to me, more than you can imagine. There is a connection between us, he revealed, and each word seemed to carry an immense emotional weight. Connection? What do you mean? I asked, confusion enveloping my mind. What do you mean? You need to understand that history repeats itself. You are my sister. The revelation fell like a heavy weight on my shoulders. The letters, all those feelings I had read, now made sense in a terrifying way. I was not just a stranger seeking answers. I was part of that tragic story. It can't be, I whispered, struggling to process what I had just heard. I never knew there was someone. I know, but you need to help me. I cannot rest until you find peace in your heart. The only way to break this bond is to release what is trapped between us, he said, and the sadness in his voice was palpable. Sacrifice what? I asked, my heart racing. What do you want from me? Something dear. Something that represents your bond with me. Only then can I find the freedom I seek, he replied, and tears welled in my eyes. The idea of having to give up something I loved terrified me. I can't do that, I murmured, the pain spreading through my being. This is too much for me. I know it's hard, but think of me. Think of the pain I feel, the pain your parents felt. This is the only way to end this cycle. I fell silent, absorbing his words. The truth was that I was torn between helping a brother I had never known and protecting the life I had built. What I did next would change everything. The room was shrouded in a dense twilight, and the only light coming in filtered through the heavy curtains. My heart raced as I looked at the spirit before me. I couldn't believe that this ethereal being, with familiar features, was actually my lost brother. The revelation left me paralyzed, his words echoing in my mind. You can't be serious, I said, my voice trembling. How is this possible? He stared at me with an intensity that seemed to pierce the boundaries of the physical world. Samantha, I am your brother. I was separated from you when we were children, and now I'm trapped here between worlds. The pain and confusion intertwined in my chest like a tightening serpent. I had always known something was missing in my life, but I never imagined the void was caused by the absence of a brother. But all of this I gestured to the letters, to the surroundings. Is this because of our family? He nodded slowly, his deep gaze reflecting immense sadness. Yes, our lives have been intertwined in ways you cannot imagine. I was trying to communicate with you, so you would know the truth. The thought that those letters, filled with love and pain, were my only connection to him made me feel a desperate urge to find him. What do you need from me? I asked, hope mixed with fear. How can I help? The spirit took a deep breath, an expression of regret crossing his face. There is something I need you to sacrifice, something that is very dear to you. It's the only way to break this connection, and I will finally be able to find peace. Those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. What could I sacrifice? The memory of my childhood? A cherished object? What could be worth more than life? No, I can't. I exclaimed, denial boiling within me. I can't lose someone else. He stepped closer, his ethereal presence seeming to intensify. Samantha, if you don't do this, I will be trapped here forever. And you will also be bound to this mystery, to the pain of not knowing. Tears began to slide down my face, and anguish overwhelmed me. What do I do? I begged, feeling hopelessness grow. He hesitated, the emotional struggle visible on his face. Just think about what is most important to you. The love you hold, or the freedom you seek. I closed my eyes, trying to find clarity amid the storm of emotions. I didn't want to lose anything, but the idea of freeing him seemed like the only way out. After a torturous moment of silence, the answer came to me like a whisper. I don't know if I can, I murmured, my voice barely audible. Suddenly, a firm knock sounded at the door, breaking the tension in the air. My heart raced. What could it be? The spirit looked at me, his eyes reflecting a mix of hope and despair. Go to the door, Samantha, he urged, the urgency in his voice clear. I stood up, my legs trembling as I walked toward the door. With shaking hands, I opened it, revealing a new letter resting on the floor. The yellowed paper and elegant letters called to me, and I bent down to pick it up. Who is writing this now? I asked, confusion growing. The spirit seemed just as intrigued as I was. I don't know, he replied, his voice filled with curiosity. But maybe it's the answer you were waiting for. As I unfolded the letter, a mix of anticipation and terror overwhelmed me. What more could I discover about my story and my brothers? The truth seemed always a step ahead, dancing like a shadow, and I was determined to reach it. With my heart in my throat, I began to read, and the words started to form in my mind like an echo from the past, promising more revelations and perhaps the key to the freedom we both longed for.